Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asani Kayatao.
And thank you for joining us this morning.
Our friends are already on the line, Marlene?
Not as yet.
I know it's a beautiful day nonetheless.
It is a beautiful day, and I know there's a lot to discuss. So we are going to get through the weather update so that you can know what to expect. Clearly, the chill is gone.
Yeah.
It left us behind. We'll find out if we'll get another cold front anytime soon to keep us in the mood.
But it's still good weather, though. I mean, the rain seems to have subsided, so we're getting more sun. We're getting, the cool that comes along with December.
Absolutely.
I'm not complaining, Marlene. Certainly not.
All right, so let's just go ahead and read the prepared forecast for this morning. So this is the forecast as of 6 a.m. this morning. The general situation is for generally fair weather to prevail over the area.
The 24-hour forecast calls for sunny with a few cloudy spells today and partly cloudy tonight. A few showers will occur mostly over inland areas this afternoon and then mostly offshore tonight. Elsewhere, showers will be isolated.
All right. There are no advisories today. After weeks of flood warnings, there are no advisories. That's fantastic news. Our winds, though, are going to be moving from the east at 5 to 15 knots, and that makes for a light chop in the sea state.
The outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night calls for mainly fair weather to prevail, with only isolated showers developing.
All right. Meanwhile, our temperatures for today are going to reach highs of 84 along the coast, 87 inland, and 78 in the hills.
The lows for tonight begin with 77 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 70 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 64 degrees Fahrenheit in the hills.
All right. We want to thank the forecaster, Angelia Guy, for preparing that for us this morning. Moving right ahead into our eye-opener for this morning, some motivation to get you going. Here it goes from dailyom.com. During the day, we can monitor our thoughts to see if we're investing our energy where it is useful. Our thoughts are powerful forces in the creation of our experience of life. You may be able to recall a time when frustration that was based on a misunderstanding completely evaporated when your understanding changed. This is because our interpretation defines our experience, and it can change in an instant. Our only true reality is the present moment. So rather than merely accepting that life is happening to us, we can harness the power of our thoughts to actively create a positive reality. Taking a deep breath will help us center our thoughts on being in our bodies right now. This then moves the unformed energy of the universe into form, which gives us direction for our words and actions. If we mentally dwell on the past or the future, we may miss the experience of living in the present moment. Each thought is like a stone dropped into a lake, sending ripples out into our world to affect all they touch. We can choose our focus and how we invest our energy, which gives us the power to design our lives to be whatever we choose in each and every moment.
There's a thing called overthinking, right?
Oh, I know that well.
I think we all know it very well, right? That's when you invest too much into trying to put things into a certain context that you altogether miss out on the experience of being in the moment. And it's something that happens to all of us. So that when the eye-opener speaks to either dwelling in the past or pondering the future and things are happening in the now, if you're not aware of what is taking place here and now, it may very well pass you by, and it becomes sort of an afterthought when you regather and recollect as to what's happening. No, that's the first thing that I take away from the eye opener, right? The other one is taking a deep breath. That to me is powerful because oftentimes we tell ourselves or tell other people, hey, step back a bit, take a deep breath and recollect. Yeah. It is important because sometimes when we lose handle of a situation, we need to do that. And by so doing, as the eye opener says, it's a build up and a transfer of positive energy, right? When you take a deep breath, you feel rejuvenated, you think clearly, you're able to see the floor for what it is, and then you're able to act accordingly. So those are the two things that I took away from the eye opener this morning.
You know, and the breath part I think really stands out to me, because you tell people sometimes and they're like, oh, you know, it's no, like if you tell people that's a way to control how you're feeling in the moment. But what we don't realize is how we do it unconsciously. You know, if you're going to step into something that you have a lot of emotions about, maybe you're a bit anxious, maybe it's a sad moment, maybe you're nervous in some way, what do? You don't even realize it, but you take that deep breath, like, let's do it, right? And it's because there's a reaction that comes from it. It helps to calm us in so many ways. But I love your thoughts on being able to remind ourselves to stay in the present. And that's really what the eye opener is doing. And most importantly, regaining control of our thoughts. And that takes some dedicated energy to be put into recognizing that maybe you're dwelling on the past of all the plans you had for 2020, fearing what lies ahead because there's so much uncertainty. You know, these are all things we have at this time. Yeah. But sometimes if we can just ground ourselves in the moment, and I know especially now, it's a really heavy time in the country. And there's a lot to be worried about, and there's a lot to have, to be overwhelmed about. But also remember that you woke up this morning with full health. You woke up with the capacity to take that deep breath, which is exactly what COVID robs us of. Yeah. And so I think that when you start counting these blessings, you have these loved ones in front of you. You know, some people are still able to go to work and have a job. And so I find that, you know, I do it too. It's like just bringing yourself back to recognizing where you are and not overwhelming yourself with everything else. Yeah. Because it is a lot.
It is a lot.
All right. So that is the eye opener for this morning. And we got to get moving because there's a lot of news to discuss this morning. So let's shift gears to Eye on the News.
On Friday morning, while colleagues in the government were preparing to swear in as the new House of Representatives, we learned of the passing of David Dido Vega, who had been battling with COVID-19 a week or so earlier, and he was here in Belize City after being transferred from Corozal. He was hospitalized at the Belize Healthcare Partners. And so upon learning of his passing, the Prime Minister, John Briceño, made an announcement during the ceremonial opening of the 13th National Assembly to inform that the colleague will be given a state funeral. And so we have information regarding that funeral, which is set to take place this afternoon in Corozal. It is a state funeral that will be dealt with. However, we're doing this, Marlene, in interesting times, to say the very least. The reason I'm saying that is because state funerals come with a certain pomp and circumstance, and the pageantry of bearing the flag and all of that stuff. And so my curiosity is, how will this be done amid the current protocols that are in place, right? What effect, if any, that will have on how this particular ceremony is officiated and undertaken. So that's the first thing, right? So again, the funeral service is set for this afternoon in Mr. Vega's hometown of Corozal. And so the other part of it is the announcement as well that his wife is also ill with COVID-19. We cannot confirm at this point what the actual status is, so I won't venture beyond that. Suffice to say that his wife is also COVID positive.
And hospitalized.
And hospitalized, yes. So that's what I wanted to get out of the way initially. Secondly, and this was heartrending, any way you look at it, Marlene, to see that a pair of brothers, identical twins, who were in the medical profession, they are now the first casualties of this dreaded disease from the medical and healthcare profession. Doctors Kevin and Kenneth Guerra passed away a day of each other. One was on the 12th, the other was on the 13th. And it is sad because you're looking at persons who gave of their lives and themselves to work in the medical profession at a time where there is utter uncertainty, chaos, and everything that is happening. And so when we learned of the passing of these two brothers yesterday, it made me think. I mean, there's a lot of reflection that goes into this kind of heavy news, right? In terms of how close identical twins are, or how close twins are in a whole. Yeah. When you have that experience of dealing with twins, either fraternal or identical, brother, sister, however it goes, you know that there's a certain closeness that they share. And so to see that they would have passed away a day, apart, and one was in San Ignacio where he worked, and the other was down south in Independence, and it's just the irony of life and how things work, right? And I put that in a certain context because the Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, is also COVID positive, and he's also hospitalized, right? So it goes to show that our frontline workers continue to be exposed in the line of duty. And so with that said, Marlene, the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Belize Medical and Dental Association organized a motorcade yesterday. And so I got a call from Andre Carrillo, who is the Executive Director of the Belize Emergency Response Team, BERT, to inform that they were putting together this activity, which for all intents and purposes would have been a last-minute thing, but given the circumstance and how things are developing so quickly, it was appropriate. And so we're seeing here the motorcade that was held along Coney Drive, and it made its way through Belize City. Now, there are certain stops that were made somewhat ceremonially, if I may, and this was in front of the Carl Houston Memorial Hospital as well, where the staff and other members of the healthcare profession came out. Some were holding candles, so it was somewhat of a vigil as well, where they were not only honoring, but also paying tribute to their colleagues who have either fallen in the line of duty to COVID or who remain hospitalized as a result of this disease. Right? So that's what we're looking at. I believe we also have an interview with the Acting Director of Health Services, Dr. Melissa Diaz Musa, who shared with us exactly the reason for this particular initiative to be held. Perhaps you can go to that now if you have it queued up.
Here together as a wider community to mourn the passing of two of our fallen frontline heroes, Doctors Kevin and Kenneth Guerra. We, the Ministry of Health, along with the BMDA, the wider private and public health community, wanted to do something to symbolize our support for our doctors who have passed away. and for their family, their immediate family, as well as their health family at Independence Polyclinic and San Ignacio Community Hospital. To date, in Belize, we have lost over 190 persons to the dreaded COVID. And this only highlights to us even more so that the response that we need has to be a multi-sectoral response. It has to come from the community on a whole, and we're asking you all over the country to join together to fight against COVID-19. Practice your public health measures as best as possible, and let us join together in force against COVID-19.
Acting DHS, Dr. Melissa Diaz-Musa, who was, as I mentioned earlier, speaking to the passing of brothers Kevin and Kenneth Guerra. And that being said as well, Marlene, we have images that were taken by our colleague out in San Ignacio, Kent Pandy, of the funeral procession of Doctors Guerra. Yeah. So there we're looking at the procession. Again, this was courtesy of the Pandy Show, our good friend Kent out in San Ignacio. It's a somber morning, Marlene.
It has been.
We're in the Christmas season, but yet we're still going through, we're in the throes of COVID-19, and we're seeing a spike, if I may, of the number of active cases as well as the casualties, the mortality rate associated with COVID-19.
I mean, that's just, I think it is, as I said earlier, it is a very heavy time in this country. And I think the passing, starting with the late Dido Vega, and then to hear first of the first brother who died, and then the next brother who died, I think it is really becoming that moment where people are realizing that things are serious. They were serious a long time ago, but I feel that people are starting to pay attention to it, and they're clamoring for interventions or ways to mitigate what we are seeing at this time. This is such a tragic loss. I can barely watch that video without, you know, if you watched it yesterday, you know, there was no way you wouldn't get emotional over it. Not because a mother lost both of her sons, and wives lost their husbands, and children lost their fathers, but even more so when you put it into perspective, these were two young doctors. They were early 30s, and they were working in the public health system. There was so much more left for them to be able to contribute. So the untapped potential that was put within the ground yesterday in those two bodies, I think it cannot be quantified. And so, you know, we have this level of empathy now, and we have had it before, for what we call our frontline workers, the healthcare workers. And, you know, if you have any healthcare worker in your family, I think you know that there is just a deep fear that you have that this would be the scenario that would happen, because they're just constantly exposed. No matter, I mean, they wear their PPEs and whatnot, but that constant exposure just means that it takes one incident for you to actually contract a disease. They're tired, they've been working long hours, they're stressed because they're seeing continuous cases. These things lead to lower immune systems. But I really think that the interesting part is, if you have this level of care and empathy for what this family is going through and the medical community is going through, we have to be honest with ourselves and know that we are not doing our part. The public is not doing their part. The numbers in Belize are extremely concerning. And I think when you put it into the perspective of where we rank globally or where we rank in the region, you will realize that this situation is beyond critical. The situation of COVID in this country, it's on a ventilator right now, if you want to look at it in COVID terms. Because I checked the metrics yesterday, and I can't remember the specific ranking, but with North America, for example, it's like 5th most active cases, 5th total cases. And that's just the North American region. We are looking at a very serious situation. The concern I think that a lot of people have about what protocols and what changes need to be made. We're actually going to be discussing that in the show, so I don't want to dive too much into that. That's the CARICOM stats there.
The regional
Belize
statistics.
ranking #1 in the active cases in the Caribbean. There was a time when we interviewed the Caribbean Public Health Agency,
CARFA.
where we interviewed them on the show, and they lauded us for doing such an exceptional job in being able to control the first wave of COVID. Now look at where we are.
Yeah.
And I will not say that we can remove any of the responsibility from our leaders, but this is actually one of those efforts that it has to be both the public that cooperates and proper protocols in place, regulations in place to minimize this spread.
Well, there's also the perspective of enforcement. I know that the Commissioner of Police, in the first instance, had always been one to enforce whatever the quarantine regulations are, whatever came under the initial state of emergency and what have you. And I'm not saying that he isn't doing that job or his department isn't doing that job now, but
we don't get the reports anymore. We used to get a daily report of how many people broke COVID regulations.
Yes, that is fair. What I'm also saying, however, is that to support what you initially mentioned, we are not doing our part sufficiently to be able to stem the spread of COVID-19. If the police department is saying, look, every other day or every day for that matter, we're breaking up gatherings of more than 10 persons who are not abiding by any of the prescribed measures, then there is certainly a problem, and that problem amounts to the continued spread of the virus, right? And so, like you said, it's a collective effort. Government, on one hand, is tasked with putting in certain measures at the policy level. The implementation and the execution and the enforcement comes from the police department, but we have our individual roles to play as well.
And I would venture to say no exceptions. No exceptions. You noted earlier that there's a state funeral taking place today. I hope that we see that the example is set from the very top, that all the protocols are maintained, because people are not taking it seriously. I pass stores and I see people congregated and drinking outside. I pass houses and I see parties happening. I mean, the curfew is set at 10 o'clock. What do people do? Just get it all in before that time. The socializing is still happening. And if you consider what happens at a social gathering, you're drinking, you have on no mask. So clearly there's a lot of interaction happening. But putting it into perspective, that's what I pulled up my numbers. So this was as of Saturday. We were 53rd in the world with the total number of cases per capita, which means if you average it out based on our population. In the deaths, we are at 39 in the world. And we're at 195 deaths today, I think. If you put that into perspective based on last year's causes of death, it would be the third leading cause of death if you use last year's number. So it exceeded the number of people who died from diabetes, who died from murders, who died from unintentional injuries, which is like crashes and things like that. So that's how serious it is. And we got to wake up and we got to start doing our part.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that brings us, and this was rather heavy, but necessary nonetheless. It brings us to the end of our Eye on the News this morning. Certainly, coverage of the state funeral, more details on the passage of the two brothers, the current health status and the prognosis of Dr. Manzanero. All of these will be in the newscast this evening at 6 o'clock. You can tune in live, or you can join us on social media as well, because we will stream our newscast via that medium. So that does it for the Eye on the News this morning.
And we are back, and of course, as we said, we didn't focus too much on looking forward or suggestions about what needs to be done, because that is the focus of our conversation for today. We're going to be having a panel discussion. We have a group of medical professionals who are going to be joining us to talk about their perspective and some of the concerns that they are seeing, that they have based on the situation that we're seeing with COVID-19 in the country.
That, of course, is a two-part conversation. So the final segment is a do-it-yourself segment, which deals with Christmas centerpieces. So we're going to end on a lighter note
Because it
today.
still is Christmas,
Yes.
believe it or not.
It is Christmas season after all.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take that break. When we come back, we're going to be diving into that panel discussion, looking at the situation of COVID-19 in Belize. So please stay tuned.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank.
It's a fact that your credit lasts longer when using Smart. During these times, we're all trying to find ways to cut costs and save the little resources we have. With Smart, it's easy to do that. It's a fact that with Smart, your credit lasts longer. You can call Smart to Smart and Smart to Digi using your promo credit, while with the other guy, you can only call OnNet, Digi, or BTL numbers. What does this mean? You get to call any national number using your promo credit. Your promo credit is free, so that call is also free. Know your facts. Don't be tricked by the other guy. Be smart and save your dollars.
Everyone is at risk of catching COVID-19, so it's important to quickly recognize signs and symptoms of the infection. The most common symptoms are fever, dry cough, and tiredness or fatigue. Some people may also have sore throat, aches and pains, stuffy nose, or diarrhea. But a few people have also reported pink eye or conjunctivitis, headache, loss of taste or smell, a rash on skin, or change in the color of fingers or toes. Emergency warning signs that require immediate medical attention are extreme difficulty breathing, severe constant pain or pressure in the chest, becoming confused, unable to talk or move, bluish lips, face, fingers, or toes. For more information, call 0800 MOH-CARE. Help keep Belize safe.
'Twas the weeks before Christmas, and all through the store, all the family was preparing for what was in store. Preparations being made, decorations being hung.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. As we mentioned prior to the commercial break, we are embarking upon a panel discussion this morning to discuss the COVID-19 situation from the frontline as well as the concerned citizens' perspective. That being said, we have with us joining from Belize City via Zoom, Dr. Fernando Cuellar. He's an internist at the Belize Medical Associates. We also have Dr. Mark Musa. He's also an internal medicine and gastroenterologist from the Belize Medical Associates. And lastly, we have Chandra Cancino. She's an advocate for all things COVID-19.
And a registered nurse.
And a registered nurse as well. Good morning, folks. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
So this is a rather robust topic to begin with this morning in terms of the COVID-19 situation and how we're affected. I want to begin by first getting your reaction to what has occurred over the past 48 hours in terms of COVID-19 in Belize.
Well, as usual, let me go first. I got the biggest mouth, I suspect. Indeed, for the past 2 or 4 days, this has hit home and really home because 2 of our colleagues have passed away. 2 young doctors, Dr. Guerras, they are brothers, they are twins, and definitely our condolences to the family. Nuestro sincero pésame a la familia en Benque. So we would want to stress that we are healthcare workers. I heard a lot of time that we are frontline workers, but everybody believes are frontline workers now, no? We don't want one category of frontline workers and healthcare workers. We are more exposed to the COVID situation, no? But even though, for example, I do ICU, which is the end one part of the spectrum, where at the very end, the problem lies with the transmission of the virus, which is the public health part. And it takes every Belizean to help us stop the spread of the virus, because indeed we expect more deaths, far more deaths. In the past, I've been classified as an alarmist, but we should expect more deaths just based on shared numbers. And the fact that our healthcare system has now been overwhelmed and with trifluropatine, then we expect far more deaths. We can lessen the deaths for sure with all our input now, both from the healthcare side, the public side, especially the media. So everybody have its role to play. And before I forget, I think everybody deserves one state federal. Sometimes you get the naive and hope that we are not animal farm where everybody is equal, but some are more equal than others. But to all our individual one state funeral, or at least make them fly the flag half-mast for the next year, indefinitely, until we come out of this, until we get to have above water when it comes to COVID. So I'll see the platform to my colleagues now.
Yeah.
Ladies first, Sandra.
Morning.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Likewise, yesterday was heavy for all Belizeans, I think. I personally joined the motorcade in Belmopan to honor the lives of Doctors Kenneth and Kevin Guerra. And so it was really difficult, even not knowing them personally. I am a twin myself, and I can't imagine what the parents and the family are going through. But even during that process itself, as we drove around Belmopan, in vehicles, essentially you're in your pod, so you're not really spreading the virus. I noticed people with the same behaviors that got the doctors where they are, and that is something that I have been trying to address as best as possible. I get so upset And like I said, I sometimes I would have wanted the commissioner give me authority for just take 1 2x4 and just walk around and just start to whap out people when they pay attention. I know violence is not the answer, but that it's so blatant, and I don't know. I feel like I don't know what else we can do to get people to change their behaviors, and so that is one of the reasons. I was glad to take the opportunity. So if we can shout it from Open Your Eyes this morning, people have to change their behaviors. It's not happening. Yesterday was day before yesterday, was Saturday in Belmopan, and nothing changed. The stores are jam-packed, filled with people. Nobody's controlling the crowds. The store owners really don't care as long as you're purchasing the items. And so maybe I've gone too quickly into my concerns, but those are things that have us where we are today. And I don't want to be get vexed quick or get vexed early, but it's really angering when you go out and you see and people are not listening, people are not paying attention. And so that's what I've witnessed over the past 48 hours, inclusive of the most, it can't get more tragic than the passing of Dr. Guerra at this time. And I'm hoping that will, give some sort of sign to Belizeans that we have to change our behaviors.
Yeah. Dr. Musa?
Hi, good morning. I would also like to express my sincere condolences to the family of the 2 doctors, Drs. Kenneth and Kevin Guerra. We have also lost a total of 195 Belizeans, and they too have families and loved ones, and we must also mourn their passing. We have our DHS, Dr. Marvin Manzanero. We wish him a speedy recovery, a full recovery. My dear friend, Honorable David Dido Vega, was just recently elected to the House of Representatives. He has also passed away from this dreaded COVID virus. So the task at hand is serious and monumental, and it has to be a shared responsibility for all of us. It cannot be one person's responsibility. It cannot be the Prime Minister's responsibility, the government's responsibility, the DHS's responsibility. It has to be an approach of all hands on deck. And there's no one solution. This is a pandemic. And if there was one drug, if there was an extra ventilator that could cure the problem, that would be great. But we have to be real and we have to act. We cannot just sit down and allow this to continue. The focus, I would agree, has to be in ending the transmission. And this is a virus that does not discriminate. It has to be that each Belizean person take their own individual responsibility, and we as a country take our collective responsibility to end the transmission, the spread of the virus. That's the only way we will make an impact in bringing down the numbers and saving lives.
All right, so let's dive into the hot topic of the day, and I know there's a lot of debate about it on social media. Lockdowns. What are your positions on it? What are your thoughts about it being necessary at this time to quell the particular spike that we're facing? Let's start with you, Chandra.
Well, from a scientific perspective, a lockdown will certainly is the ideal option to stop the spread of the virus. And so that is where I come from. Well, I'm looking at the quick fix kind of thing, especially when you see the deaths multiplying. However, it might not be the most sensible option for Belize, because while I may be looking at it scientifically, you have to look at the economic side of it, and I think that is where the balance has to come in. And that is where I would imagine our leaders are currently discussing what if any changes will be made to the current status of implementation of the last SI. And so for me, I support a lockdown from a scientific point of view, but I understand the concerns of the economy. However, people will use the last lockdown as their experience. Remember, that is what we have as experience as a lockdown. And it won't necessarily be the same in this party. I mean, we've learned a lot. The time might not be as long. It might not be as drastic. And so people that have lost their jobs, people that are, you know, currently unemployed, will panic if you hear that there is going to be a lockdown. And I think that is the challenge that the leadership will have to face in determining whether or not, if we do a lockdown, or what extent of a lockdown would be done.
When I consider the idea of a lockdown, as you rightfully mentioned, Chandra, there are economic consequences that come along with it. But perhaps at this point in time, one has to seriously look at what stands to be beneficial from a lockdown, and in this case it would perhaps be a curbing or a stemming of the spread. Notwithstanding, you know, there might be economic fallouts as a result. Let me
And lives.
And lives, yeah.
Could I add something to
Sure,
that?
go ahead.
I, for one, both personally and professionally, I am against national lockdowns. Okay, I think the consequences are far too damaging, especially for the economic side. Chandra just mentioned economic classes and people they take severely. Now we have to qualify that it's really bad.
Yeah.
So we need to go for strategy based on science and data. So for example, we could get the data week by week, and we could focus on areas that we need to implement measures so that we could minimize the spread. So it's more of a strategic lockdowns here and there, and other measures that will help solve, but not a national lockdown.
Just to understand clearly what you're saying, is it like when we saw the explosion of cases in Orange Walk, many had said, try to get control over at least that district so it wouldn't spread as far as it did?
Exactly. We have an EP unit that churns out, that spits out data every week, and we can act on data. Yeah. We can act it. We can pinpoint where the hotspots are and the clusters, or whatever terminology you want to call it, and focus our measures there instead of just locking down the entire country. Of course, when you talk about national lockdown, the craziness, lock borders, lock airport, and damage livelihoods. So we're not going there. And I would hope that the authorities not go to national lockdown, but make we use science data for do the strategic surgical measures to avoid the spread.
Let's
Dr.
get your
Musa?
way. Yeah.
If I could, I think everything has to be on the table. I understand Dr. Cuellar's point of view that everybody is taking lick economically, but the doctors, the nurses, the public health inspectors, the lab and our health system are also, they are taking lick too. So it has to be a balance. I agree totally. Our country, the last time I heard, it was 130% of the GDP that we're in debt. I agree, but there doesn't have to be a necessarily two ends of the spectrum. It doesn't have to be a free-for-all, or it doesn't have to be a total lockdown. But it has to be implemented. Something has to be done, and it has to be enforced. There is no point. We have people on TV saying, this is the SI, and we have a curfew at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and it is not enforced. This has played out on our national television. When we see how countries react, it is the more disciplined societies that have gotten a handle of the spread, in combination of restrictive measures. But in all honesty, this is a rapidly changing thing. I mean, the WHO said countries should not go in lockdowns. The entire Europe is in lockdown right now. So we can think and we can continue to talk. But when this virus overwhelms our health system, which it already is, and overwhelm our entire society, it will be too late. So if we want to go for that middle approach, which I think is what we should do, there also has to be triggers. What will trigger a national lockdown? If we don't change our behavior in 2 weeks, if we don't see the number going down in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever, but we cannot, there has to be triggers. In the States, some states, even though they have had a free-for-all attitude and very loose in terms of implementing restrictions and lockdowns, some of those states have a 10% positivity rate to initiate restrictions. Over the last month, we have consistently had 20%, 30%, 40% positivity daily rates.
Yeah.
One day we were at 50%, yeah.
Exactly. So I think everything has to be on the table. We have to protect lives, and we also have to balance that with protecting livelihood. So I do agree. I think everything should be on the table, but there should be some triggers. And we, as the Belizean people, have to take our responsibility. We don't want to go into any national lockdown and make it even more. That has its own consequences. Yeah. People will go hungry. Crime will go up. I understand all of that, but everything still has to be on the table.
Let me ask a question. Do you all feel that, and especially given your healthcare experience, do you feel that we have reached the worst of it as yet? If things continue as they are?
No.
No.
We are
more to come, Marlene. Far more to come, unfortunately.
If I can just do some percentages, no?
Sure. Go ahead. We love data.
Yesterday, I think, December 12th, we had 9,173 confirmed positive cases, 4,700 active, and 195 persons have died from COVID. And we have a 2% mortality rate. And like we said, we have a daily rate, positivity rate of 25 to 40%. If we allow 20% if we do nothing and we allow 20% of our population to become infected, 20% of 400,000 persons, that is 80,000 Belizeans will be infected. A 2% mortality of 80,000 persons is 1,600 persons will die. If we go to a 30% positivity rate, infected rate, and a 2% mortality, that number goes up to 2,400 lives will be lost, etc., etc. So the percentages, the positivity rate is extremely alarming, and we have to act now.
And just to segue from what Dr. Musa said, people, the mortality rate at 2%. Yes, it's not, when you think of it in the grand scheme of things, it's not very high compared to probably the flu or other diseases, but the COVID-19 is so unbelievably contagious that there are so many people that are getting it that still translates into hundreds, and if we don't change our behaviors, into thousands of Belizeans that are going to die. So yes, there is the fact that the mortality rate is at 2%, but the rate of contagion is probably 1,000 times higher than the flu. And I think that is one of the areas that Belizeans have not been able to grasp how contagious this disease is. I mean, I could pass and brush Mark in a supermarket and he has it and I will get it. I mean, that's how contagious COVID-19 is, and I think people are not grasping that, and that is the reason why I think our behaviors are not changing.
Can I say
one of the reasons. Yeah. Sorry.
Can I say this as a matter of an observation, perhaps? I think when you look at the first lockdown under the state of emergency under the previous administration, it was seemingly stringent in terms of your freedom of movement, in terms of the total lockdown across the country and what have you. And when we came out of it and saw that while we may have been better off in terms of stemming the spread, we were worse for wear from an economic point of view. People now just simply want to go back to work, want to resume some sense of normalcy, and that perhaps is what informs the behavior that we're seeing, that people altogether have set aside whatever rules or regulations that should govern how we move and how we interact in open spaces to say, well, if I want to go and have a drink, or if I want to go to the supermarket, if I want to go to the store and do my Christmas shopping, the hell with everything else that comes along with the COVID situation. Would that be a fair enough observation to make, given what we're seeing at the moment?
I do think so, Isani. I do think so. I think that's actually, it's not only fair, it's accurate. People are COVID fatigued. They're tired of hearing about COVID. Every time you turn on the TV or radio, you hear this, that, wash your hands and my face mask up. People are humans, they get tired. We're begging, we're asking them to just be more patient, more cooperative. You don't last forever. You last for a while more. And definitely, Mark sounded really good, and I'm glad that he brought out the numbers. But if you say it another way, if we don't do nothing, people will drop like fly.
Well,
I got some things where I say sometimes, and then they didn't bag in labs and say, no,
well,
people are
please
like
don't make
fly
any predictions today, because that wasn't one that we were happy to see come through. But
it's not prediction, it's a real thing.
Well, I know, because what you guys are looking at, you know the situation on the ground, you know what's happening within the healthcare system, you know, because, and that was going to be my question to you, Dr. Musa, because the 2% fatality rate that you mentioned is one thing, but I checked the numbers just now, and based on World Metrics, which compiles data from around the world, we're at 39 in over 200 countries that are on that list in deaths per capita, which means based on our population. So, and that's considering that we haven't seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, to actually reach max capacity as yet with our hospital care. So that death rate or mortality rate may change when literally there are no more beds or doctors available to work with people.
Yeah, I totally agree, Marlene. With regard to the lockdown, this is all new to the entire world, no? And I think if we look back in March or April, we triggered a national total lockdown when we had 18 infections, I think, and 2 persons that died. Our lockdown, obviously, in retrospect, we can all, and I advocated for restrictive measures and lockdowns to be implemented. And we all, but that doesn't mean if it was implemented too early, that still can't be on the table. What I'm saying is, I think we have to be more strategic. That lockdown was too long. It was for 3 months. There was no quick, these things have to quickly change. I mean, countries go into 2 weeks stay at home orders. Then they get the numbers down. Then they go, well, you can work up until 6. It has to quickly change. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't probably use the word lockdown, but I think the previous lockdown was too long, too stringent, and it frustrated. It played on the minds of the whole Belizean people. It devastated our economy, and but there are other ways of doing restrictive measures, and perhaps the most important one is the enforcement of it. Because there is no point we writing down all these or passing all these SIs and things like that if it is not enforced. And the simplest way that it can be enforced is for people to cooperate. If we don't need the police to be stopping people on their bicycle if their mask is below their nose, but they need to go into high-risk areas. They need to go into busy workplaces and make sure that the workplace, that people are following the guidance, the protocols, things like that. Because the spread is now in our homes and in our workplaces. If we do restrictions,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think the restrictions might help in socializing behavior, in terms of bars, restaurant, etc. But we have to take our responsibility when we go home as well. We have to think, I am not 20 years old, but if I'm a young 20-year-old person that works at a call center, I will likely, 99% likely, survive COVID. But I have to take that responsibility that I won't go inside my house and infect my mother or father or grandparent, and they won't do as well because they are over 60 and they might have comorbidities and things like that. So that is extremely important. Workplaces is extremely important. If we are saying, if employers are saying in one side of their mouth, we need to keep the economy open, well, you need to take the responsibility to adhere to protocols within your workplace.
Yeah, and that is such a critical point. I also, what you spoke of, Dr. Musa, is looking at what you introduce into your home. There is a huge gap in information, and I know people will argue because it is everywhere, but is it being communicated adequately or effectively for people to understand what the idea of your safe bubble or your safe pod is? And I want to talk about that afterwards, but also looking at other things that may help. We know that things need to tighten up. What kind of restrictions do you think would work? Well, Dr. Quare, we do have to take a quick break, but we're coming back and you can open us up back up, please. So we'll take that break and we'll be back in a few to continue our conversation.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Fulltech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere. Satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
We are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us. Then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Actualmente, el virus de COVID-19 en el país sigue siendo una amenaza. Debido a que el virus nos necesita para propagarse de una persona a otra, podemos evitar que infecte a otros si practicamos el distanciamiento físico. Eso significa: manténgase al menos a 6 pies de distancia de otras personas. Evite el contacto físico. No se salude con besos, abrazos ni de mano. No se reúna en grupos grandes. Quédese en casa cuando los oficiales de la salud así lo indiquen. Utilice los medios sociales o el teléfono para comunicarse con los amigos. Evite los espacios cerrados y las áreas con mucha gente. Trabaje desde casa si puede. No visite a nadie que esté enfermo, en cuarentena o en aislamiento. Mejor, llámelos por teléfono. Protejamos nuestra salud.
And welcome back. We're going to continue our panel discussion on all things COVID-19 this morning. First of all, however, I want to share the figures as released by the Belize Police Department in respect of arrests and law enforcement over the course of the weekend. It has here, over the weekend, 105 persons were arrested and charged for offenses under the quarantine regulations as follows. Failing to wear a face mask or other face or mouth covering whilst in public, 41 persons. Breach of curfew, 28 persons. Failing to practice social distancing, 5. Hosting a restricted social event, 7. Attending a restricted social event, 23 persons. And transporting a passenger on a public transportation while not wearing a cloth or other face mask or face or mouth covering, 1 person. So those are the numbers that were shared with us by the Belize Police Department this morning that took place over the weekend in terms of law enforcement. Going back to our conversation, Dr. Koyar, you were about to weigh in on a point that Marlene was making earlier. I don't know if you want to jump in at this point or you need a refresher.
No, I'm good. No Alzheimer yet.
Go ahead.
There are two things I wanted to quickly point out. The lockdown, and I do agree with Mark in terms of it wasn't the best of ways, but we should learn from it. Let's say it that way, you know, that we should learn from that measure that was taken, and hopefully do not repeat the same mistake. The other thing is concerning what I think Sandra mentioned earlier about the enforcement, the messaging, and enforcement. I can see, and we talk about behavior changes, and behavior take 20 years, and we need it faster. We need to strengthen our messaging so that every sector of society can get the message the proper way. And I also, off camera, we were saying about hopefully we poor police department don't stretch thin, half certain percentage sick, and we got other non-COVID issues to deal with, gangs and so forth. So why we not get one special group, one marshal, one marshal brigade, who to invest in the volunteers from the community or from other public servants and make them walk on the cities and towns with one lead vessel, some COVID marshal, and you go into the shops and the public areas and point out that the regulations are not being done. And because we need more hands on deck, we keep the same, we need more eyes. So we need human resources. Huh?
Yeah. Now it is 2x4 now.
Now it is 2x4. Maybe it was taser. We need that volunteer. We need to think outside the box, guys. Okay, we need to get a volunteer and recruit and help out for implementation. But that's my 2 cents. I don't know if you are getting from the regular populace or church people. Or, I don't know. Yeah. But somewhere.
I think Fernando. We're not even using what we have efficiently and to the best of our ability. The government is the biggest employer in this country.
Exactly.
If they are saying, but let us implement a shift system, let us shift, if the lands department not got much work for do right now, the clerks can come across and help. They can man hotlines, they can man computer databases, things like that. So we need to redeploy what we have as well. In addition to what you say, bring new people into the, we have a problem with bureaucracy. And new people need to come in and and decisions need to be made. We can't, everything can be, I need to go to the House of Representatives to pass this legislation. It is taking too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we need to use what we have, and we need to bring additional help in at all levels, at the public health inspector level, at the lab level, the lab techs. I think they have been going at it from March of this year or February, and it is the same 6 to 8 lab techs that have been doing shifts. We have not even say we have lab techs throughout the whole country. Let us train other persons and let them do a shift system and help that these machines, let us buy more machines.
The excuse has been money. The excuse has been the excuse
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, well,
We can't continue like that. You can't go and tell me, no, you don't got money. You have to find the money.
but we have great partnerships with other countries. I'm sure if we ask Taiwan to send away, 10 lab technicians for assisting, I don't know if we're using all of the partnerships so that we have to get people to come and help. I don't know if those are options
So
that
then
have
here's a
to
question or an observation.
But even equipment too.
In the early part of this whole COVID-19 situation, we had the Cuban Medical Brigade come
Yes,
in
okay.
where we did not have this swell in numbers.
Yeah.
Perhaps now is a time to revisit that relationship with Cuba and Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
I
Perhaps it's
agree.
being done,
I
but
agree
I don't know.
totally. I think any help we can get, whether nursing wise, doctors wise, lab tech wise, we need it now. The point about we're not using things, our current staff to the best of our ability is, for example, we started testing at the airport. We have trained lab techs doing the tests. I don't know if you see on TV now in everywhere else. Sometimes people are doing their
Doing
own
themselves.
swab.
Yeah.
Sometimes the rapid test isn't something very technical. So those persons who are highly trained, they need to be doing the more technical PCR tests. The rapid test can be done by nurses. It doesn't need a doctor as well. It can be done. Obviously, training needs to be involved.
That's interesting. UB has a lab tech program, so there's students there who are learning
Exactly.
currently that would have
They
the
have-
maturity to understand the work. But let me
They have a
go.
nursing program as well. They have a
Yeah.
nursing program, and we might need to bring those nurses out, those
students.
final year students, and put them on the ground and put them in their practicals, and they need to help.
Yeah. Let me go back though, because we're talking about what needs to be done is it's a fire that is blazing and it has to be calmed down. Before we could out it completely or get it to manageable, it has to be calmed down. So we spoke earlier about the lockdowns. Let's talk about what is in place. We do have 10 persons restrictions. We know that's not being adhered to. We see it even on TV. We have the mandatory mask use, mandatory social distancing. We have the suggestion for shift work and work from home models. Suggestion, not mandatory. And we have a mandatory 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. Let's talk about whether you think this is enough, where it needs to be enhanced. Let's dive into that one.
It's not enough, Marlene. It's
What
not
needs to
enough.
change?
We need to, that voluntary workplace issue has to change to mandatory, not leave it into the hands of the employers or the employees. We need to focus on that. Public transportation has to be looked at too. And those are the things we continue with the mass and so forth. I think the 10 o'clock, the 10 people one okay. We need to continue with the curfew. We need to look at that alcohol issue. So there are at least a whole handful of things that need to be added to what is current, because what is current isn't working enough.
Well, we chat about that alcohol issue off camera. And so the suggestion is some countries have looked at alcohol prohibition or minimizing where people can drink alcohol. So you could buy it and carry it home, but you can't drink in a bar, a restaurant, outside of a shop, as we know is common in culture here, which we still see taking place. Talk about that.
Marlene, I wanted, because it goes back to what Dr. Musa had said as well, is the enforcement. And we go between saying, oh, we have a personal responsibility, and then we talk about enforcement. But in reality, we don't have, Dr. Musa also mentioned that we don't have that culture of discipline. And, for lack of probably I went this on Dr. Quera word, but no, I shouldn't put it on Dr. Quera, but we lawless. And we're not lawless in the sense that we are not law-abiding citizens, but that's our culture. We are risk takers, and I think that permeates in the Caribbean. We don't know the discipline culture.
The discipline oriental countries, no? We see that they've been using masks for years, and
yeah, I think as well. Yeah, like we had mentioned, the enforcement extremely important, but we have to realize the police department, the BDF, the Coast Guard as groups of Frontline, they have been hit the hardest as well by infections. So there are other ways of adding, like you all said, adding persons on the ground that go in to check workplaces, that they are adhering to. Not everything have to be big stick either. So we don't need the police for everything. If we have if we have more people on the ground, obviously we don't want to be ourselves spreading the virus when we are doing our checks. If we have one public health inspector with another person go into workplaces, we need more bodies on the ground to be doing the checks. And then if people are violating it, there has to be a fine. If there's a second violation, they have to realize you wanted to keep your shop open, your supermarket open, you have to adhere, right? We will have to shut you down for a week. There has to be some consequences to whatever you put in law or paper or things like that. But we don't have to always go there.
But
then
everybody cooperate.
Maybe we could, because at all stores, most workplaces, you have a security guard at the entrance. So perhaps it's time to bring on the security companies on board, empower them a little bit to be able to monitor. Some do it. Some in some workplaces, the person who monitors the amount of persons that are going in and out are the security guards. But bring them to the table and give them a little bit more authority so that maybe they can act on behalf of the ministry per se. And I don't know what the correct terminology for use, but those are people that are already out there on the front lines doing their jobs anyway. So like Dr. Quer, so we have to think out of the box and really work together to try to make it.
But it
I
seems
think as well, one last point, I think as well, we don't want to enforce things too stringently in terms of, for example, if you're at a grocery store and you say it has to be realistic, your restriction. If you say, you can't say only 10 persons allowed in 88 shopping center or Brody's, because then your problem will have 50 people lining up outside transmitting the virus. So it has to be sensible. Some countries have, if your last name begins from A to L, you go to the grocery store on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You go to the market on a Sunday, and things like that. So you can't, as part of your solution, create a problem outside. In terms of, if you put in a restriction, it has to be realistic, and it has to be to make sense, to minimize the spread.
Now, as you clearly said earlier, there is, as much as we are learning about COVID and about the spread of it, there is information that is shared periodically that researchers have been able to verify. And one of them, coming from the World Health Organization, is that the most common areas for spreads are 3 C's. You're talking about crowded places, close contact settings, and confined and enclosed spaces. So one of the things that, and I think it was the CDC, that also had said that the spread was taking place mostly between close families who are getting together and friends, and as well as co-workers. So these are less controllable spaces than your public and businesses and whatnot. So the key message is helping people to understand this idea of how to keep safe. I have spoken with people that I assume understand what a safe bubble is, but they don't realize that having safe bubble with friends and safe bubble with workers and safe bubble with, other relatives is not really a safe bubble. So let's talk about that, because that's really where there we go. That's really where you're going to see most of these things spreading. We've heard horror stories of people who take the disease home to a parent who doesn't go anywhere, and then the parent dies. So there's a disconnect in the information.
Well, I think Marlene goes back to messaging. No, we have to strategize our messaging better. We should have different ways how to let people come across. That wasn't highlighted. All we were talking about is the public areas and the universal measures. But since now we have proven that big way of transmission of the virus in the families and the homes, then the time now we refocus or add more messaging just directly to that.
Go ahead, Chandra.
Well, to add to that, not just quickly, is domestic workers, because we have a lot of domestic workers that come to our homes and work there, and they don't wear a mask while they're working. You are not sure how they behave in their pod or in their places. And I think when Dr. Manzanero had posted his announcement about contracting COVID, that was the impression I got. So that's another area that you have 100% confidence that when you have other people coming into your home, that they're not bringing the virus, and that is another way that you can get the virus into your home. Without doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, and then somebody comes from outside. I'm not saying, again, it's all about educating and having the discussions with your helpers, etc. What you want them to do, what you expect, and so that is another area that I think we kind of miss, the whole domestic worker situation.
Yeah, I think with regards to the spreading of the virus within the home, again, that requires manpower, and that requires public health inspectors and different persons going in as part of contact tracing and testing the other family members early and getting results early. But if you go into we have the benefit that we are underpopulated, but we are a poor country. So
we live in
you have
spaces.
people, you have 10, 20 persons living in a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house, and so there has to be talk about this is an unsafe environment. We already have 2 persons infected in this home. We need to mandatory quarantine this area, take persons out and put them in quarantine or isolation areas and try to stop the spread within the household. So everybody in the household has a personal responsibility, but there also has to be a reaction to when you actually get an infection in the home. What will I do with this overcrowded home situation? We have to do something to break that spread within the home.
I want to play Marlene for 1 second.
Go ahead.
I want to ask the doctors what are their thoughts on the mandatory quarantining stations or places that we have. I'm not sure to what extent those are still functional, but that also comes at a cost. And I would like, do you all think that the cost of having mandatory quarantine centers, are we getting benefits for that sort of quarantine? I'm not too sure what the update is on those. So I'm just throwing it out there.
I think that what Mark said, it makes a lot of sense. No, I mean, you have to take out in situations where you're not able to self-isolate at home. We need to have maybe hotels or places to quarantine these people. Of course, it comes with a cost, but the greater cost will be not doing it. So if we look at it from that angle, if we not do nothing, it'll be more costly rather than they pay the actual cheese to the hotel owner or something of the sort. So I think it's something that definitely has to be, because remember, guys, we'll face more trouble in the future. Yeah. We're not reached rock bottom yet, so we expect more trouble to come. Yeah. Okay, and the try some calm and pretty, but we are in a January, in a February, after the Christmas, we expect more cases.
That's when it gets colder too.
Well, all kind of factors involved there, of course, no? Yeah. And hopefully, I just want to quickly, before we forget our healthcare system or healthcare workers, we have to rethink strategies there, how to absorb more people in the healthcare system, how to be able to tend to more people, and I'm sure that's being done as we speak. No, please make our colleagues in the healthcare system know that we got them back, and the populace on the whole, especially over the past 2-3 days when we say there are 2 young physicians passing away. So I don't want enough say it again then.
Yeah. I one last point on the quarantining and things like that. We know well when a hurricane is coming to Belize, no? We tend to see Dr. Rene show up and go on storm watch or whatever, and we activate emergency operating centers, we activate NEMO, things like that. These things need to be activated at all levels. We need logistics coordinators. Me as a doctor, I can't tell you whip out you for fine 200 cuts and food for when you open a quarantine center. But we do these things for other emergencies. Yeah. This has been a 10-month or a 1-year emergency that we have to activate these things. We have to use everybody. Yeah, on the level
there
of
were quarantine centers identified early in the pandemic. I remember they were setting up some areas all across the country for that purpose. Now that you've brought it up, Chandra, that's also something that perhaps hasn't been discussed with this new administration as yet, but it had been outlined.
What is the fate of Camp de Silva at this point, which was identified in the Mountain Pine Ridge as the location for persons to be quarantined
who'd been arrested.
Who'd been arrested. We don't know where we are.
Yeah. Well, so I guess we'll be getting those updates, as time go. I guess that's just one area that I always talk about, and that's the communication. A lot is being done, but we don't know what is being done, and so people perceive that as nothing is happening. And so I always encourage the different sectors, tell us what you're doing, give everyone an update. If you're discussing fixing something, let the public know, because people panic, people worry. Maybe a lot don't, but a lot do. And knowing that, the issues are being addressed. And so I encourage all of those sectors with information and updates to provide them so that the public can feel a little bit more reassured and a little bit more contented that these things are being addressed.
Absolutely. I think Dr. Coyer, you noted the epidemiology unit. They have interest. It's a team that puts out detailed information that's kept kind of internally. But if we start to look at stats and look at numbers and ages, maybe it'll paint the picture better for all of us. Let's bring this back home to another issue. Yes, people are tired of COVID. There's a whole thing called COVID fatigue, and there are people researching that now too. We have a benefit in Belize in being late, as to our nature. We are late in the pandemic. We will get the vaccine much later than other countries that we're watching right now. But it gives us the opportunity to pay attention to what's happening elsewhere and see what works and didn't work and was effective. And I know all three of you are very avid investigators in this area. What model has been implemented in another country that you have thought to yourself and want to put the suggestion forward can be done in Belize? And we'll use that as our wrap-up point.
As it relates to the vaccines?
No, not vaccines, about getting a handle on our situation.
Well, I just saw an article that New Zealand is declaring themselves virus-free.
That's right.
That was like awesome, like wow.
But they also have the most stringent lockdown measures.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a combined approach, Marlene. It's everybody on, like we keep saying these buzzwords, everyone hands on deck. We need to repurpose the public service, the public thing. We need the private people to get in board. We need the health sector to step up. We need everybody, or else on the country, if we not do what we need to do, then we are in a bigger trouble. So they don't have one magic bullet. We don't have one thing, that one whole combination of different strategies
So you want to see, let me summarize what I've heard from you. You want to see more volunteers helping out on the ground.
Yes, yes. I
You
think
want
what Chandra said, that point about messaging or communicating to the public, it don't make no sense. You just got to set of numbers every day to get read out, but people need to know, okay, so this has happened, so this is where we are now.
Yeah.
But what they do?
And let me just plug in there. I thought the failure with, I thought the failure with canceling Ask the Experts is that they didn't realize that was the public's opportunity to get answers to the most minute details that oftentimes technical experts don't think about.
Exactly. And you know, we didn't need to be every day, every week. We need to get on the TV and the radio and say, you know what, this is what the Ministry of Health, this is what we're doing. These are the changes that we're doing. But it makes no sense. I just get and read numbers every day.
Okay.
We need to let the people know, the public on a whole, what is being done, and things are being done. Because Chandra, as well, you get the feeling like everybody say, I get texts all over, like that, where they go on, that, where they go on. And even at home, in terms at home in the healthcare sector, our colleagues need to know that things are being done, that we got them back, because they too also feel at times that, hey, then when we're most exposed and we don't love them as we're supposed to. So it's all over. It's all over, the whole 360 degrees thing.
All right. There you go. Do you want to do Chandra?
Well, just I agree, Marlene, because remember with Dr. Quer in that it has to be tailored. Those models, New Zealand, Cambodia, Taiwan, they're all based on their specific circumstances. They're all based on premium health systems, which we don't have. And so it certainly we can learn a lot and use some of what they do, but it would have to be tailored for Belize. And I think we can do it. And I think that people are right now, trying to get it together. But just to add to Dr. Quer's stay at home, is that now I think we have to get the sense. We need to get the sense, and that's what I want people to do today. Get the sense of what happened. Things are not going our way. Things are not going well. More people are going to die if we not start to get the sense and start to change the way we behave.
Yeah. All right. Dr. Musa.
I think I saw the iPhone left, so I think he may have disconnected.
Oh no, I do hope let's check and see if we can get him back
Must
on.
have got a cheap iPhone.
Well, I think the conversation has been very productive so far. It's kind of just looking at the situation as people who are in the front line and people who have been paying keen attention to what's been going on. You spoke of lockdowns based on areas with specific communities. Chandra, you spoke about being able to be more strict and enforcement as well, getting volunteers out if that's the case that we need to support the work of our professionals. I believe we're trying to get Dr. Musa in for that last word. Have we got him? Dr. Musa?
Sorry.
They're getting him now, yeah.
Sorry, something so you're at the last word?
Yeah, we're at the
That's
last
right. So you go ahead and you share with us. It's closing points, suggestions to move forward.
Yes, I think it has to be an all hands on deck for all Belizeans at every level, from the government level, from the private sector level, as an individual, as an employer, every single level. It has to be a shared responsibility. There's no one solution to this, but we have to use the public health measures. We have to use testing more efficiently. More testing can help to identify persons early. They can isolate and end the transmission. Contact tracing can start earlier. We have to use the preventative measures and enforce them where appropriate to end transmission. We have to beef up and increase the capacity, both as on the human side, in terms of our nurses, doctors. We need all the help we can get. We have to buy more equipment. We have to implement surge plans to try and at least react to rising numbers. That if we have 20 beds full at Karl Hushna, I have identified another ward with 10 more beds, that there is a plan that it can be. We can't wait for the crisis. It is already here. We have to act, and we have to act now. So I think at all levels, we have to act now and implement. It's no time for committees and meetings and things like that. It's all hands on deck, and we have to use what we have now to end the transmission, get a handle on the spread, bring down the numbers, and save lives.
All right. Thank you all for weighing in on this discussion this morning. We really appreciate it. Stay
Thank you,
safe.
the media.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe, everyone.
You too, Marlene and Lisani.
And with that,
Bye-bye.
we are going to go ahead and take a break. Of course, it's been a very robust conversation with three well-informed persons who understand the healthcare system, talking about some of the things that we need to start either implementing, enforcing, or exploring to get a handle on the situation.
And then to lighten things up now, when we return from our commercial break, we're going to be doing a do-it-yourself Christmas centerpiece. And we're going to be joined by Marion Middleton, who's an entrepreneur, to share with us some do-it-yourself tips.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Smart got you this December with the
are back and we're moving into our final segment for today. We're all getting ready for Christmas and we promise to bring you all the tips and tricks that you need to really make sure you feel the season. Today we're focusing on Christmas centerpieces. Now, there are many options as to what you can do, but of course everyone's trying to keep on budget. So today we're looking at making your own. And Marian Middleton, who actually makes centerpieces for sale, is going to give us some of her tips as how to make one for yourself. So let's check that out. Marian?
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
I am pretty well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on the show. Well, today we'll be doing your centerpiece. And this centerpiece can go anywhere in your house. It's perfect on a dinner table or on a coffee table. You pretty much need just few items. I'm going to show you what we're working with today.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So
those are ones you've made before.
This is pretty much just a small folds of flowers, and you will be needing a charger plate. If you can see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
What we do, we'll just put the flowers just around the charger plate. Remember, all of these will be glue gun. It will all be stick perfectly nice.
Oh.
And you'll be needing 3 candle holders for these.
Okay.
I like the crystal ones. So those will be going in the center. All 3 of them. What goes perfect with these centerpiece is your Christmas balls. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
You can just put them anywhere nicely around that charger. We all know these are the favorite for Christmas.
Oh, that's pretty.
And we just continue place them as your eyes would see necessary.
Yeah, that's what you creative people say. When I do it myself, it's a lot harder than that.
We also want to blemish it with some nice silver leaves. We can just put those around. And remember, all of these will be glue stick, okay?
Okay.
And after that, this is how your centerpiece would look. It all depends on your color, your theme for the year. My theme is actually red and black and silver and a little pinch of gold. But this can be done in any color that you would like. Yeah. So a centerpiece doesn't go well without your candles, right? So you'll place your candles just on the candle holders. These candles are very, very cheap. They're not expensive. And you can pick them up anywhere downtown, right? The only thing, I got them a little bit smaller, but there's also a trick to this. If you heat it up a little, and then you just stick it.
Oh, that's smart.
Okay, so that is a trick. I wasn't playing with any fire this morning, so I won't be able to show you how to do that. But you pretty well would understand how this would work to get it standing straight.
As simple as that. Now, the best glue
as
to
that,
use,
you have a perfect centerpiece.
You use the glue gun, right? Is that the best glue to use?
The glue gun is used to glue everything around onto your charger. And I said, if you don't get a bigger candle, you can use these. Just heat up the bottom and they will stay perfectly well. The flowers can also be changed into the color that you might like. I mean, this is perfect for Christmas. Everybody loves red. Everybody enjoy silver and gold. But
Marian, you made that look so easy.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Now I must confess, like I see things like that and I think that you do have to have a bit of an artistic eye. And some people do and they can do it themselves. But you also offer some for sales for people like me who would probably have a hard time doing it. Let's talk
about Marlene, I love because I can go in and decorate your whole house.
Just wow. So tell us about some of the things you're doing.
I have been doing a lot of stuff for the Christmas, but I'm going to show you a few that I have here on my table. I have these little nice Christmas balls that you could hang personalized with your name on it.
Oh.
You can see that there. I also have a new one that I had did actually light up in the night, and you could put your picture in it.
Nice.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah. You could get one with each of your children if you want.
You can get one for each of your children. You can get one for your parents or a close friend that had passed away. Just a memorable for them on your tree. My new one is the Diva ornaments. I mean, these are really nice.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, these I made these last night to show you. These
fantastic
are well
lashes
requested.
too.
Interesting.
You know how ladies like pretty stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So
And
you
don't
can
forget, you wanna do
personalize.
something for your child. You can personalize her little elf.
Oh. All right, Marion, you can shift us back to your face so we can see.
I was
it.
just
Thank
about
you.
to do
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more things that I can show. These are hot sale right now. The Christmas Diva. Read, here you go.
We just saw that one for LA Fashions. That is amazing.
Oh yes, I did a LA Fashion
Yeah.
one. She was happy with that one.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. And there's another one here. You know, everybody likes something different.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
I actually started making masks. So these are my Christmas masks as well.
What does it say?
Baby, it says, baby, it's COVID out there. Outside.
Yeah, it's COVID outside.
Oh.
Right?
Do you make the Grinch ones too?
I am not into that Grinch, but if they request, I'll make it. You want to do something for your home as well, for your wall?
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
So, Marion, how did you venture into this?
Oh, girl, it's a long story, but I'll take 5 seconds of your time.
Let's go. Let's hear it.
When the pandemic started, I work in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
That's where we
Everyone
know you
knows.
from. Yeah.
Everything was very slow, and you know, everybody had to go home and wait until the airport was closed. So I was at home for like a month. I was called into a few meetings, so I find myself buying face masks to go to the meeting. And I wake up one morning and I said, you know what? No, I'm going to sew my own mask. But I thought about it. I said, but I don't know how to sew. So I said, okay, I am going to purchase a sewing machine and I'm going to learn to sew. So YouTube helped me on that, right? So I actually YouTube how to sew, YouTube how to set up my sewing machine, and that's where I started.
Oh my gosh.
Girl, you know, when you're asleep and you wake up, you always have some great ideas. Well,
Yeah.
that's me. I wake up with great ideas, right? So I got up one morning and I said, I want to do something like what's going on out there, what's trending.
Yeah.
People like their masks that have their personalized name or a little quote that remind them of something. So I said, I have about 1,500 friends. Let me post and say, I need help with getting my business together.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how people start sending me money towards my business, saying, Marian, you have been so good to me. Here this is. I hope this can help you. I have good friends that from the States all over, they just start supporting me. And that's when I start buying my equipments. I bought my heat press, I bought my silhouette. I start buying these stuff to make where I am now. And I am so happy. I am so happy. I'm actually at home right now. I won't be in office until January. So I have so many times to get these things done. And these are extra cash that I can pay bills, that I can put towards things, especially for the Christmas. So I encourage anyone to do something that they love. I love creating things. I love making stuff. So find something that you love and go with it. I mean,
Marian,
with God, everything is possible, right?
you know, thank you. Thank you for your honesty in sharing that story, because we do all know you from the hotel sector, and we know that it has been devastating for many people who have not been able to go back to work. And true to fashion, because you've always been such an optimist and such a positive person, you've swung it around to something where you're showcasing a whole new talent. And we're glad that you're sharing it with us. So you sell your stuff online, people make orders, and
yes, they do. I actually have a page. My page is Mars Collection.
Okay.
You can go on the page and like it. I actually would like to do a giveaway today for the 20 person that likes my page. They get to put this in their home.
That is so fantastic. That's like a statement piece there once you have that up.
Yeah.
Thanks. So they get to get that. They go on Mars Collection, like my page. I mean, you'll see my face there. And my slogan is, be beautiful, be comfortable, be safe.
All right.
So the 10th person that comment on that gets to take this and showcase it in their house for the Christmas.
Perfect.
I love 10th. So start now, like don't waste time.
So don't waste time, and I'll be checking.
So we
also, once you're in the city, I can deliver this to you. I actually live in Ladyville. Anyone in Ladyville, just let me know. I can be reached on my cell number. It's on my page, or I can also be reached on Facebook, WhatsApp, to place your order.
So you have the centerpieces that you showed us how to make, but you also make custom pieces as well. You're decorating homes for people as well?
Yes, I do. And I also do parties. I do backdrops. I set up the whole entire party. I do your selfie. There's a lot more.
Okay.
So if you check out my page, you'll see all that I'm doing and all I have been doing.
What's the most requested item that you're getting for Christmas?
The balls.
The custom balls?
The custom balls. And the new and beautiful Christmas diva.
Yeah. And you can do that in whatever color code that people want, no?
Whatever color code, you can get that done. That's right.
Well, this is fantastic to see. So if I have a special message I want to put on my mask, I can. You'll make it for me.
I'll make it for you.
Done.
Remember, I actually started off in this pandemic with masks, but because it's Christmas, I'm just pulling together some Christmas stuff.
Okay.
But my masks have been going. I have companies that I do masks for. I have small companies, big companies.
Yeah.
Anyone, birthday, just call me.
All right. And the cost of the masks?
The mask is $10. And these masks, they are also adjustable straps, so they can adjust to your ear.
Yes.
So they're not just the plain elastic, they actually soften on your ears, especially if you're wearing it for 8 hours at work.
Gosh, yeah.
It helps. So there are actually two prices. If you just want one design, that's $10. If you want two designs, then it's $15.
Fantastic. Marian, thank you so much for sharing with us the
You
work
are
that
more
you've
than
been doing, for talking us through how simple it is to do that centerpiece. But like I say, not all of us are artsy, and we'll rely on your expertise, right?
Yeah.
So it's Mars Collections on Facebook.
On Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you very much. We
So
appreciate
remember,
it.
guys, go like my page and place your order.
There we go. Beautiful.
And you definitely want to, you got to hurry, because that giveaway is for the 10th person to
10th
comment
person.
on that photo.
And you're commenting on that photo along with my slogan, be beautiful, be comfortable, be safe.
And that's the same we're going to wish for you, especially the be safe
Thank
part.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys have an awesome day.
You too. All right, so there you had it. You can make your own centerpiece. Can you try that, Isani?
It's something I'd probably have my daughter do.
Ha ha ha.
And I'll just
I'm
supervise.
pretty sure you could come up with something creative. I do believe that about you. But
I still have some creative energy in me.
But you know what? I think it's both. You know, you can make it for yourself if you feel that that's something you want to do. But it's also a great idea to support small business owners like Marianne, who are creating these things at home as a way to supplement as we all face the fallout of the pandemic. So thank you. And we're going to go ahead and take that final break. When we come back, we'll have our wrap up. So please stay tuned.
If we are only as strong as our
And we're back. And we want to thank you for tuning in this morning. We had a really robust conversation this morning with Dr. Musa, Dr. Cuellar, and Chandra Cancino talking about the situation of COVID and where we are at this moment.
It is a critical situation that we're faced with as a country. Yeah. And so it's only a matter of reminding and reiterating the public that we all have a part to play here. Yeah. It's a shared responsibility in terms of trying to mitigate the numbers and trying to make sense of what is happening. Because when you look at everything that has transpired over the past 72 hours, let's say from Friday onwards, a lot has happened and we're still trying to process some of it, but it has to do with the way we behave, the way we interact, and the way we treat with the COVID situation.
Well, you know, we are going to, in our newscast tonight, we'll have some more coverage on what is taking place or what has transpired over the past few days. But I have to say, you know, the public is kind of anxiously waiting to hear from the government as to whether or not there are going to be changes in the regulations, enhancements. We kind of discussed with various perspectives the idea of lockdown, but then there's also more stringent curfews that can be done and other options as well. So I guess we'll see during the course of the day. We haven't gotten any word as yet as to whether or not there'll be any type of announcement like that. But we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, so we want to thank everyone who tuned in this morning, and thank Marion Middleton as well from Mars Collections for sharing the DIY centerpiece this morning. Remember, you can find her on Facebook and you can make your orders from her, and she also has that giveaway that you can participate in. But that's all the time we have for today. Remember, if you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. Drop me a line at marlene_oye@channel5belize.com. Find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYE Belize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
Start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.